Richard Prosser.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. I'm pleased to rise on behalf of New Zealand First to speak, to take a short call on this quite dreadful budget as it has been delivered by this quite terrible government. It's been called a zero budget, and that is what it has delivered for the New Zealand Defence Force. Zero. Nothing. Zip. Nada. I have to refer to my notes here because zero can be spelt in a number of different ways. I listened to the Minister earlier in the evening, Mr. Speaker. I listened to Dr Coleman attempting to defend the indefensible. He made a valiant attempt, Mr. Speaker. He's a good man. Of that I'm sure. I'm sure that Dr Coleman is genuinely committed to the New Zealand Defence Force. I'm sure he genuinely wants to see them perform to the best of their ability. For our forces to go, when they go out into the world, for them to go with the best of equipment and the best of support. It is a testament to his loyalty, Mr. Speaker, to the government of which he is a part, that he was able to stand and defend the fact, or attempt to defend the fact, that defence is not being given enough resourcing for it to be able to defend New Zealand. It is also loyalty which drives the men and women of the New Zealand Defence Force to carry on in their duties in the face of ever-dwindling resourcing. They don't do it for the money, Mr. Speaker. God knows they don't do it for that. And even in this secular parliament, it is important that God knows it, because under this government's ongoing defence cuts, it really will be God who is tasked with defending New Zealand. But despite Dr Coleman's best efforts to justify the illogical, irrational and downright dangerous penny-pinching of his government's meagre, as some might say feeble, indeed embarrassing allocation to defence, it remains a fact that New Zealand's military is disadvantaged by it. I had the honour, Mr. Speaker, members of the House, to accompany the Minister and a number of other members to the Alum Halfa exercise in Wairuru last month, and I have to say I was seriously impressed with the commitment, with the dedication, with the professionalism that I saw from our boys and girls, from our military forces. Small in number, young in age, I have to say, to my eyes, in a comparative sense now. Impressed by their continuing commitment. Mr. Speaker, I do not see that level of commitment continuing from this House to those people. We continually, over the decades, over the years, we continue to downgrade defence. We continue to cut costs, we continue to cut corners. We continue to believe that we live in some kind of imaginary benign strategic environment, a term that was crafted more than a decade ago by people on this side of the House, but by people who, in my opinion, in my estimation, in the view of New Zealand First, were not grasped of the realities of the military world, did not have a worldview that took history into account. Mr. Speaker, we do not live in a special bubble of human existence. The world is not different now. The world has not changed. People have not changed. The behaviour of humans, the behaviour of nations has not changed. Conflict will come again, because conflict is the natural state for humanity. We live in a break between conflicts, that is all. The Pax Americana has been imposed through the threat of force on the Western world these past 3 generations. Conflict will come again, and we are not prepared for it, Mr. Speaker. And the budget allocation to defence this year by this government has not assisted in that process. The world is an uncertain, unstable place. It's becoming more so by the day. Only this morning on CNN, American defence analysts were warning of renewed instability in the Middle East. Tensions are growing between Israel and Iran. The former is already armed with nuclear weapons, and the latter is quite possibly seeking to become so. Iran is certainly armed with weapons capable of reaching southern Europe. And there are southern European nations who have been exercising with the Israelis, who Iran might take to be enemies. Iran has missiles capable of reaching Italy, Mr. Speaker, and Greece. The South China Sea, Mr. Speaker, a half-dozen nations, including China, lay claim to the Spratly Islands, rich in oil, and to fishing grounds which are ever more contested and ever more congested. Several nations, Vietnam, the Philippines and China among them, have taken to sending naval vessels out with their fishing fleets in order to protect their national interests. Against this backdrop, Mr. Speaker, New Zealand is cutting funding to our defence forces. We are civilianising back office jobs and looking for savings from operational budgets. This is folly, Mr. Speaker. It is misguided and short-sighted. There are people in Christchurch suffering because they failed to make proper account for their insurance, and then the earthquakes happened upon them. And New Zealand today is not making proper account for our national insurance, for our defence. The defence of the nation is the first responsibility of government, Mr. Speaker, not the last. It's the very last thing which should be cut in this nothing budget. A mediocre, lacklustre budget from a mediocre, lacklustre finance minister. The National Party should be ashamed of him and of this budget. Thank you.
Honourable Stephen Joyce.
Mr Speaker, I move that this debate be now adjourned.
The question is that the motion be agreed to. Those of that opinion will say aye. Contrary, no. The ayes have it. Party vote. The clerk will conduct a party vote.
New Zealand National.
59 votes in favour.
New Zealand Labour.
34 votes opposed.
Green Party.
Opposed.
New Zealand First.
7 opposed.
Māori Party.
3 votes in favour.
Mana.
1 vote opposed.
Act New Zealand.
1 vote in favour.
United Future.
1 vote in favour.
Any other votes?
The ayes are 64, the noes are 56. Motion is agreed to. The House will now adjourn, and I declare the House... the debate is adjourned, and is set down for resumption next sitting day. And call on government orders of the day numbers 2 and 3.